Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of my plant room to kind of showcase the progress I've been making in the past few months, some lowlights, some highlights. I think the last time I did my tour of my plant room, which I only do once a year, was back in November. And I think quite a lot has changed since then. At that point, I was definitely coming out of kind of a plant collector's funk where I just wasn't really into it because I was so into other things and I just couldn't find the time to dedicate to my plants. But since then I've been really motivated in getting my habits back in check. If I summarize the things that I've done since then to kind of get my collection back moving into a better direction, it's still a work in progress, but it's a lot better now. I will say I've been much more consistent with watering my plants before they fully dry out, even before they're even close to drying out, which helps a lot. I've been more consistent with CalMag because I ran out of CalMag for a little bit. Now I've kind of reintroduced it as a regular part of my routine, which is maybe like once every 4 waterings or so, I'll do CalMag. That was to battle some fungal issues I've had in my tent. I've started opening my tent once every 2 days or so to introduce air exchange because I don't run fans in there, so there's not really much moving air when the tent's closed. I've also pared down my collection quite a bit. Some plants actually died in my period year of neglect, and some just weren't really worth growing anymore. I've given a lot away. We just recently did restock, and in that restock I think 43 plants left my collection. And then more recently, I would say in the past month, I've been really trying to catch up on all the repotting that I have been behind on. So just the other day I mixed up a tall IKEA bin of tree fern soil and I used it all, and we're not even we barely made a dent in the repotting list, but I feel so much better because I can see some plants I've been repotting in the last few weeks. The roots are growing in. I think I'm setting things up for a nice growing season this summer, and I feel like my collection is at a manageable size now relative to how much time I currently have. So I'm just feeling very optimistic. I think I always feel quite optimistic. That's just kind of who I am, but I'm feeling quite optimistic about this year relative to last year. So without further ado, I'm going to start at one end of the room and kind of move my way around. Again, I'm not going to show you every single plant, and also I'm not going to, it's just going to be too many plants to write down the name of every plant that I show. So if you have a question about the ID, you didn't quite hear what I said, just feel free to leave in the comments. Oh, but before we start, I wanted to do this at the beginning of the video. There's a few questions that I get very frequently that I try to address every now and then, but I still get the same questions over and over again. So I just wanted to leave the answers here. The most frequently asked question, I get it on almost every video and in DMs, is where do I get my clear plant pots? I never leave links for pots because I didn't personally buy them from, say, an online shop. I always get them from friends. Throughout the years, I've always had friends who would import a whole bunch with the intention of sharing it amongst other friends and people they know in the hobby and local people. So that's basically where I get all of my pots. I don't think I've ever ordered from a shop. I'm just running back the years to make sure that that's true. I am 99% sure I've never ordered these clear plastic pots like these ones from a shop. I've always gotten them locally, but I will say if you want to look for them, I think you can just get them on AliExpress, Temu, that kind of thing, and the cost per unit is going to be much lower if you order a whole bunch. Or there's quite a lot of Etsy sellers who sell them, but you're just paying a lot more, but you're just not having to order hundreds at a time. So it's kind of up to you, but I don't have a clear recommendation of where to order it from. Glass vessels that I use as cash pots or as risers for plants, those are all usually either from the dollar store, like Dollarama, or the thrift store, or from friends. In terms of substrates, I believe all the plants you're going to see today are either in a mixture of tree fern and DIY pond, which is basically like a 50-50 mix. I do have a DIY pond video, I'll link in the description, and also tree fern soil, which I'm starting to use more of lately, which is basically tree fern fiber mix, 1 part that and 1 part kind of a general aeroid mix. Right now the base I'm using is a kind of general peat blend from a place called Garden Works that's local to me, mixed with more perlite, bark, I think that's it. I've got you zoomed up by about 50% right now just so you can kind of see the whole thing at a glance, but this is basically my plant room. I don't think I've ever shown it zoomed out like this before, but this is the most decluttered it's been in so long. This time last week there were 5 bins of plants here that were ready to go out, and now they've been shipped off to their destinations. But there really is so much space for propagations and for plants to grow new leaves without touching each other, and I'm just so So pleased with the progress so far this week. And I say this week because this past weekend is when all the plants got shipped out and I did a whole bunch of repotting and cutting things down and reorganizing. So yeah, it's looking a lot better right now. So let's start over on this side. This is kind of like my propagation shelf. I have 2 domes and a few bins. The next thing I need to declutter is supplies because I have not just pots, but just like random other supplies. Look at the top of my tent. It's just like full of crap that I don't plan on using. I have extra grow lights and things like that. So I'm going to be like, I've been noticing some new people entering the hobby or people re-entering the hobby locally to me, and I think they could probably use some of this stuff. So I'm going to be paring down my pots and glass vessels and stuff even more, even though I've gotten rid of a lot in the last year. There's still a lot more to declutter. So this was kind of like overflow pot space because I found myself with way too many pots at one point. I need to clean the top of my domes. This is one dome of stumps, plants I'm kind of restarting, and here's another one. There's 2 midnight velvets. I sold 2 in the last restock, and then these 2 I held back because they weren't as pretty, but they are growing fairly fast. I probably will be letting go of them. I'm not sure if locally or in the next website restock, and that'll be it for midnight velvet props for the time being. Some other stumps of plants that I'm restarting. I don't know that there's necessarily anything super interesting in here. A lot of them are plants that were kind of ugly, maybe pest ridden, had damage on them, and I needed to restart them, but I didn't have time to get around to like fully repotting them, so I just cut all the leaves off and put them in a bin. I did do a little bit of shuffling around in the tent. Let me see. Oh my goodness. I need to show you this plant. My Carla Bevep. This is the GPH by Round. This is the one that was the pollen parent to my hybrid, the Carla Beveps. It put out the most perfect leaf. This is probably the nicest leaf it's put out for me ever. It's so nice. I haven't done anything different except for water it and maybe feed it with some CalMag. Like, it hasn't been repotted in over a year. There's another inflow coming in and I'm just shocked. I'm shocked at how beautiful this leaf is because this is not the easiest one I have, but the veins are so pretty. I honestly don't want to repot it or anything because it's obviously happy enough to put out a leaf that's perfect. So I just kind of want to leave it there. And luckily it had enough room to expand because previous leaves would grow into the side of the tent. So that's just like a really happy situation. This is my one Fairchild crystallinum from NSC that I got from IAS. Enid was selling these at the IAS members table for such a good price. You can see the 59 there. And then the prices kind of went up like crazy after everyone just swiped the whole table. People were walking around with trays and trays of them. So I was lucky enough to get one, and then it wasn't growing really well. I put it into that compost tree fern mix and it died back. And then it came back with like 5 growth points and I separated them all. So all those props have now been sold, and this is my one keeper. I recently repotted it into a 4-inch pot and put it in the tent. It used to be in a dome. It seems to be growing again. Let's see if we can see any roots. I don't see roots on the side of the pot, but it seems perky. It's put out a new leaf, or a leaf is about to come out, so I think it's gonna be okay. This is an Ace Bevep that was restarted in a bin, hence the scrunching. It was grown like in the midst of like 5 other plants, but it has put out a new leaf since I moved it back into the tent. I did try to grow this in Ambient for a little bit and it did not like it, so I'm going to be growing it in the tent for the foreseeable future. Bevep by DF has just put out this leaf. It's a little bit curly, but look at that sinus. Look, it looks like a, what's that moth? A death moth? I don't know. It reminds me of that. It's so nice, but it's getting a little bit big for my tent, so I'm a little bit concerned. I keep chopping leaves off because it gets so wide, but I love this plant so much. This one was bred by NXC Plants. I repotted my Fortune Ralph Linum Carla dress into a much bigger pot. It was like a much bigger plant than this before, but it fully crashed after making berries, so we're just waiting for it to come back. And then my Carla 1x16, I repotted into a bigger pot while I had a new leaf out. That leaf decided to leave. But I am seeing lots of new root growth. So this one is in tree fern soil. I don't know if the apical growth point is dying off. It's not looking great, but something still could emerge from up here. So we will wait and see. This Diabloense, I was surprised. There were 2 plants that didn't sell in the restock, and this is one of them. And I kind of get it because this old leaf, there was some damage from it fully drying out. This old leaf has some crisping from fully drying out, but it has since then put out a new leaf, and I will be on top of the watering, and I have been on top of the watering, so I'll see if somebody else wants it. Jing was talking about doing the secret plant show again, which is like a local plant show. It was nothing as big as PlantCon or IS or anything, but we figure it's a good opportunity for us to sell plants that are maybe too big to be shipped and things like that. So maybe I'll do something with this Diabloense there. This is my Brielle that was also graduated out of the prop box. It has a new leaf coming in. I repotted into 4-inch pot. This is the BVEP that I showed in last week's video. This is from Pao and Josh. This is BVEP T1 by Tazula F4. I had 2 from them. This one was my favorite. Look at how that leaf looks. It's gonna be such a pretty BVEP. I'm so excited to grow this. So it's been up potted into a 4-inch, which hopefully it doesn't hate. So far so good, but I'm going to make sure I don't let it dry out. It's in this spot here, which is kind of farther away from the grow light. You can see that the bar is up here. There's also a bar here, kind of pointing inwards. So it's not a lot of direct light. So hopefully it likes that. It stays nice and dark. A couple of my Carla BVEP holdbacks. This one was the darker one of the two, like kind of dark and bumpy and minimally veined. This one had kind of like a, almost like mite damage. It was hard to tell what it was, but I did mite treat it with pyrethrin, and then I potted it up into a big pot. This was only two days ago, so I'm not going to see any difference as of yet, but hopefully it will size up from here. Similarly, another one I repotted, Carla BVEP. This one is more veiny. I've basically sold all my holdbacks. I'm down to, I think, like 3, which is very, no, maybe 4 out of like 100 and something. So I really don't have any more to sell, but you see there's like a little mite damage specks here. So I did also treat this one. I kind of misted it lightly with pyrethrin. I didn't wipe it because it's an emergent leaf, and I let it dry outside of grow lights. This is the older leaf. Quite ugly. I think this leaf is going to end up being just this size. It was very, very root bound in the 4-inch pot, so hopefully the next leaf will be bigger. Dark Phoenix, King of Spades. There's that beautiful leaf. It's a little yellowing on the edges. There's quite a lot of roots in that pot, so I will be repotting it fairly soon. I repotted so many plants this week. I could have kept going, but I am fully out of soil now. So until I get more, no repotting for the time being. I only have 2 left of this batch. There's this one. There's one downstairs that looks a lot more Dark Phoenix heavy. My Carla Woo Oneself, the last leaf, ripped itself coming out of the sheath. But we've got a new leaf, and it looks like it's going to be a big one because it's still shiny and it's like the size of my hand. There were no tears coming out of the sheath, so hopefully it expands nicely. I've been really on top of the watering, and you see that? Mushrooms. The mushrooms are back. I'm very happy about it. Contaminated Carla is looking so ugly these days. This last leaf was teeny tiny. It didn't expand well. It's really stunted, and it was like fully root bound inside of it was this size pot. It was in this size pot. So this week I took it out. I took 2 cuttings out of it. I put it into this, I think it's a 7-inch pot from Jing. So there's way fewer roots in there. So the goal is to get the next leaf looking much nicer. It looks like it's going to be popping a new leaf. This cataphyll has been activated. And then I have 2 props of it growing in a bin. Midnight Velvet is still looking really beautiful and dark. Once the next leaf comes in, I'm going to be cutting these 2 old leaves off that are, oh no, three old leaves off that are really ugly. It got really ugly, I think, from being in that compost tree fern mix, so it's now in tree fern pond. There's quite a lot of pond in there, and I keep a reservoir when I water, so it stays a little bit on the wetter side, and it really did seem to like that transition because it went from this being the newest leaf all the way to this. This is a BVEP that I think was bred by Rory. It was given as a seed to Paul, who gave a seedling to Amanda, and Amanda grew it big. She cut it, gave it to me. This was regrown out of an auxiliary bud because the apical bud died from underwatering. So it's continuing to grow. There's a new leaf coming in, and it looks okay. My trouble with BVEP is not really growing leaves. This one grows pretty slow. My trouble is getting leaves to stay without damage. So that's why I'm really excited about this one from Pao and Josh, because it has been growing like this with little to no effort from me. So it seems to be a much easier one, and like that texture is so nice. This is Spider Ralph Man. I was on the verge of purging this, but I'm kind of glad I didn't because there's a new leaf coming in. It comes and goes with this plant. I really like Bessie AF, but I can't grow Bessie AF, so I've given up. I'm not getting any more Bessie AF. I got rid of my last one. And a Bessie AF hybrid is quite nice because I love the blues and the purples and that holographic shift. I think when this leaf fully expands, I'm going to be glad I didn't get rid of it, but this is kind of a finicky one. My Carla Lux, this one was bred by Paul, but I got it from Amanda. I recently repotted it out of a 5-inch square pot into this 8-inch. This would have been just a couple days ago, so no new visible roots yet. That's not a new root, I don't think. I still want to breed this with my Carla Wu oneself, so I want to put the pollen from this onto there. We'll see how this looks when the next inflow comes in. I want to make sure that it seems strong enough to make berries again. Actually, we'll be putting a little collar on this just to get some more roots up top. I think we can get the 2 inflows lined up pretty well because it hasn't put out the next one yet. And this one's already out, which means hopefully it'll have pollen by the time that one's ready to receive. Carla Lux and like Lux inflows take a really long time to go through the phases, but fingers crossed I'll be able to collect some and freeze it in time for the inflow on that one. So technically this doesn't need to stay in the tent, but I want to keep it pristine so that I can breed with it. I just don't want to risk it until that's done. This plant used to look so much prettier before it got root bound. It was so black. The color has gotten quite green on it, but it used to be like black. I'll put a photo here of what it used to look like. It was delicious and it's looking pretty kind of ordinary right now. So I'm really just trying to get it looking super dark and inky again. I don't know why I'm inspecting the pot again because I said I only repotted this 2 days ago. I'm just patiently waiting for it to glow up again and breed it with this. Don't you think Carla by Carla Lux will be such a nice hybrid? Just bumpy but dark and velvety with more visible veins. I think it'll be so nice. Back here are a couple of Carlas I graduated out of bins. So these two are the same. These are a Carla from Rory by another Carla that my friend Justin potting it out there had. They've been growing surprisingly well in just these dinky little pots inside of a bin, and they were getting smushed by the bin lids. So I just graduated them out into 4-inch pots. It might have been a little bit ambitious, a bit boat mode-y, but I'm just gonna trust the process and that'll be good. My NSE red crystal that I showed in last week's video is looking so good. The color is so nice. It's still a little bit soft. It'll be a while before it's fully hardened. I also repotted this. It was also in a 5-inch pot and I got it up into this, I think it's a 7-inch pot, but it's really wide on the sides. She's got an inflow and this one's in tree fern soil. It really was quite root bound in the last pot and I'm hoping that it continues giving me nice leaves without rips and stuff, but you just never know with this plant. I probably should have taken a cutting, but I didn't and now it's too late. My snake oil is still in intensive care. This is DIY pond mix with stratum. That growth point is still alive, but it's not looking amazing. I'm preparing myself for the eventual loss of this plant, which will be really sad, but I really hope I don't lose it. My pink black velvet I showed in last week's video, the new leaf came in, but it lost the 2 leaves below. So I don't know if it's happy or not. I might repot it into this mix, the tree fern pond stratum mix, because that's what my variegated nobilis got potted into. And usually with alocasias, whenever I repot it, it throws a fit, drops a few leaves, and that didn't happen with this plant. And I'm guessing it's the stratum inside the mix, so I might do that with this plant because it's really hard to see the roots. It's really hard to see if the reservoir level. These 2 leaves seem okay, but I'm a little bit worried that it's dropping leaves at such a small size, so I might want to repot it. And that is my tent at a glance. There's lots of room between plants. I can see a whole season ahead for it to kind of fill in with things. And the Carla Lux can move out of here once I get the pollen that I need to pollinate that plant. So yeah, I think I have a good plan for the tent for the next few months and we'll see how it goes. It always gets very crowded over time, but I do have some exit strategies in mind. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it right now. And now over to the ambient shelves. I can honestly say this is the most content I've been with the shelves since I installed this. I mean, like in the time I've had this as a plant room, this This room has gone through so many transformations. The biggest transformation obviously was when I put these shelves in place of, like, I had an EXO here, another EXO here, wire shelf here. I have one EXO left, which is I'm not like committed to keep, but it's kind of useful right now because it's kind of a semi high humidity enclosure I can keep rehabs in, or like things that I'm not ready to move into ambient. If I were to get rid of it, I would just get another shelf here, and then I might end up, like, if I have less plants in the future, less seedlings, if I breed less and get rid of props, and I can use this shelf as a prop shelf, then I can have larger, heavier plants on the floor, which I'm not thrilled about, but stuff like my Dark Phoenix is so heavy, I don't trust it on this shelf because I really don't want to rip this system out of the walls. And if I have stuff on the floor, it'll mean that it'll be harder to move things out and kind of vacuum and mop and stuff. So all that to say, I'm not committed to keeping it, but I don't have an alternative setup that I am super motivated to install. So for now, I'm pretty happy with this. I also want to get rid of this wire shelf because it just doesn't really go with this shelf, but it's obviously a very useful kind of shelf. And right now I'm just not really in the mood to keep throwing money at the plant room and stuff just for aesthetics. So this is fine for now. It's not my ideal, but I can live with it. So this might have caught your eye. This is my Ace of Spades dark form. This leaf is fairly old. I want to say it's like between 6 and 9 months old. It had a little bit of ace pox, and it's the only leaf I left on the plant when I cut off a bunch of leaves doing a cleanup. This leaf got torn up coming out of the sheath, so it was already like this when it came out, but we do have a new leaf. This just popped out today, actually. This was still kind of stuck in the sheath yesterday, and so far I see no tears. The tip is pretty intact, so this is a very welcome sight. And once that comes in, I maybe actually would let this naturally die off and fall off on its own. The roots seem okay on this plant. I don't really feel a huge need to repot it, but if I did, I would put it into one of these bigger pots like this. This one I think is 10 inches. I got it from Jing. So that would be the next size up for this. But yeah, it looks really ugly right now, but it's about to look better. Fingers crossed for that new leaf. My original Wenlingeri, this one's, I'm not sure like what it's called. It was kind of circulated. I got it in 2021, and it's a really waxy, kind of wide and shorter leafed Wenlingeri, and it's super, super rigid. There's no flop whatsoever on these leaves, and it has put out a new leaf. It's not perfect. There's a little bit of warping right here, but it's maybe the biggest leaf it's ever grown. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest leaf. This plant takes up so much space. I honestly love Wenlingeri. Wenlingeri and Pallidiflorum are the only pendant anthurium for me. Other strap leaves like SP Morona, not really my thing for the growth pattern because they're not true pendants in that they don't grow downwards. They kind of grow upwards and the leaf kind of curves over. I just think Wenlingeri and Pallidiflorum are just so perfect as they are. And because they can grow so long and you need so much vertical space for them, it's tough to keep more than a few. And right now I have 4 Wenlingeri, but I traded my original Pallidiflorum, like the regular, like wider form, to Charmaine, and I got in return this Wenlingeri, which was from Bunny. So this one is a JV Wenlingeri. So you can see how different it looks in terms of texture. It's a lot smoother. I think this one gets a lot longer and it's not as kind of textured looking as this. I forgot to show you in the tent, I also have this, which really, really needs a repot. This one's an NSE Wenlingeri and it's looking really pale because it's a little bit nutrient deficient because it's in such a tiny little pot. But this is actually one of my favorite Wenlingeri forms, like the really dimply NSE Wenlingeri, and it grows fairly fast. Actually, I lied, I have 5. I still have this Woohoo Wenlingeri, which I planned on getting rid of, but then I put out a new leaf, which I underwatered and it just shriveled off. So I'm not feeling great about selling a plant in that condition. So I still have it, still haven't repotted it, still in a tiny little pot, and it gets really dry really fast. Let's see. No, I just watered it a couple days ago. This, which I plan on keeping, it is pushing out a leaf right now. Well, it's about to emerge out of that caterpillar. The tough thing about woodlinger is when you have it on a shelf, anything behind it gets covered. So I used to have my King of Spades back here. I didn't want it to be covered by these leaves. So right now there's nothing in that spot, and I've moved that King of Spades up here. Speaking of King of Spades, this is my original one. I showed it in last week's video. It is a little bit wonky, but this is probably the biggest leaf it's grown for me, and it's quite full of roots. It's hard to see because of the algae, but the roots are so thick. And then I have another little King of Spades. This one's like a little, I guess, like another further selfling. It's not quite as round and interesting as the other ones, but it has been growing a lot better. So this would have been in the fall of last year when I did a cleanup of this shelf, and I cut off all the ugly leaves and stuff, and I cut off a couple of ugly leaves on the King of Spades, and it's put out this leaf and this leaf. It's in tree fern pond at the moment, and yeah, I kind of want to get it into a taller pot, but other than that, seems to be recovering better, growing better. My Minahasa, I moved up here. What did I do? I repotted it into a bigger pot. I cut off an inflow. It was starting to grow smaller leaves, and they were getting a little wonky. I wanted to reset it, so it's in tree fern soil now. And with a bigger pot, hopefully the next leaf comes in nicer, because it used to be kind of steadily upsizing, and it, you know, kind of got root bound, and that kind of stopped the upsizing. So we'll see what the next leaf looks like. Right Crystal Port, right King of Spades is looking pretty good since the repot. Nothing has really happened. Let's see. The caterpillar is not really active, but you know, it's okay. My Mr. Worldwide, I really need to take it out of the pot, and I don't know what's going on. The last 2 leaves it put out shriveled off before it could even expand. This is the latest one. I don't think I've ever really let it dry out. It's quite heavy right now. The surface of the substrate looks pretty dry, but I haven't repotted ever since I got it. And this would have been over a year ago. So I'm not really 100% sure what's wrong with it. Like oftentimes when it's not expanding new leaves, it's a nutrient deficiency thing, or like a severe watering issue, severe root issue. I've never had the experience that it would do that just by being root bound, but I do feel like it needs maybe a reset, and I might reset it inside of the tent since I have more room now. This is my Port Carla from the Homebody. It's looking so good right now. It's probably, let me back up, it's probably the most perfect looking plant in the whole of the shelving system. Before I moved it out of the tent, I repotted it out of 5-inch into, I think this is 8-inch, no, 7-inch. So it's in tree fern soil now, and some new roots have come in. It's looking good. No damage from being in ambient. The new leaf, unfortunately, when I was repotting it, got a little bit damaged, but it was way too big to fit in the tent at this size, and the leaves they kind of droop down a little bit. I think it must be the Carla and the hybrid. So the petioles go downwards, which means the leaves kind of sit like this, and eventually it was going to get really ugly. So I rescued it out of the tent before it was too late. Hopefully with the summertime, the humidity is a little bit higher, can have like a longer acclimation period to ambient. My King of Spades Red Crystal from Dania, I don't know what's wrong with it either. There's some like root growth, but it's not as rooty as I would have expected. It's been in this pot for quite a while, and the last 2 leaves that it tried to push out also shriveled. So this one emerged and dried out, and then the last one just came out halfway here and then dried out. Luckily, it doesn't look like the apical growth point is fully gone, but it's having trouble putting out leaves, which is such a shame because this plant was so perfect. It did have some thrips earlier last year, which I'm not too scared of thrips because spinosad usually takes care of them. I'm just not really sure what's going on there. And again, probably means taking it out of the pot and repotting it into something else. Maybe tree fern soil, honestly, because the plants that I've been potting in this mix lately have been rooting up pretty quickly. And like this is maybe a few weeks of root growth. This is, I don't know, maybe 6 months of root growth, like barely anything. I did move things around a little bit in my exo. So this exo has glass on top, which makes it a little bit higher humidity, but I was noticing that things were staying a little bit too damp in here. So I've been keeping this door like not fully closed. This is the BVEP I showed in last week's video from Jorge. It's hardening off really nicely. It's not fully hardened yet. This is one of my Carla BVEPs. So I have 3 keepers, and then I have 1 still in this bin that got a little bit of pest damage on it, so I didn't sell it last time. But really, I only have 3 holdbacks now. It was really hard to let go of a couple of the holdbacks in the last restock, but it just had to be done. And Charmaine came over to help me organize the sale plans, and she helped me be that kind of ruthless voice of reason. It can be so easy to talk yourself into keeping more things than is feasible for your time purely because of regret aversion, and you're just trying to protect yourself from the potential regret you might experience. But honestly, whenever I've sold a plant that I had once upon a time loved really much, or you know, it had potential to become something special, I don't think I've ever really regretted it. This one came out of the tent and it was in a little 4-inch pot, little round pot, and I kind of moved it up quite a lot, but hopefully, again, like the other 2, hopefully it's okay. I haven't boat loaded plants in so long that I'm not feeling super confident anymore, but in the past it's always served me well. This one also has a little bit of that mite damage, so this is the insecticide that I sprayed it all with. I just kind of saturated all the leaves. I took paper towel and just pressed it in and then kind of dabbed it off, front and back the leaves, petioles. That has worked well for me in the past for mite damage. Down here are some plants that I've repotted. So this is the other bee vep from Pal and Josh. This one got a little bit squashed from the lid of the bin. And this one is FTG Self by Carla Soul Reaper. I showed this fairly recently. Look at the sinus. It's so flat. It's also really narrow and long, so I'm really looking forward to this growing bigger. That's why I moved it out from a 3-inch pot into a 4-inch pot. I moved it out of the bin so it can properly expand because it was getting smushed. If I just kind of lay it flat, maybe it'll harden off like that. That looks way better than before. What else? This is a bee vep that I down potted actually because it was in a bigger pot. There's barely any roots on it. This leaf is dying. This one was a bee vep from Grant, or like bred by Grant, that I got from Bunny, and it's been really hard to grow. But if that bee vep can do well in here, I was thinking maybe smaller pot, tree fern soil, maybe we can give it a bit of a jump start. This is another plant I repotted this week. It's so funny, it looks like a little bush. It was in a bin right here. It got too big for the bin. It was getting squashed. This was the leaf that was growing into the top of the bin, and there is some thrips damage on it. It's been treated. It's fine. And I repotted it into a much bigger pot. It was in a 4-inch square pot, and this is, I think, 6 or 7 inches. It was so root bound. It was like a brick inside of that pot, and it was like roots coming out the top, growing in the air. I forgot to mention this one is Dark Phoenix by Pap RS5 Self. This is a hybrid I did with Jane. It's the only one I held back. I quite liked it like before when it was really bumpy, and I wanted to grow it bigger to get this texture back. It's quite similar to the texture on the Pap RS5. So yeah, it's like it comes and goes. It seems like this leaf, not that bumpy, very Dark Phoenixy. I want more of this. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to come back, but we'll see. The older leaves were looking so nice before I started getting too big for the pot and too big for the enclosure it was in. So I figured we'll just put it into a big pot and let it live in Ambient. These seedling bins are way less full. I have plans to slightly up pot some of my other seedlings. I'll show you in a second, and there's plenty of space for that. Before we get to that, just want to show you the Diabloense, the big mama. The sad thing is, the inflows that were producing berries decided to abort. I'm not devastated. It would have been nice to have seedlings, but you know, whatever. I read recently that Diabloense kind of readily self themselves, so I'm not gonna bother trying to match up inflows because it usually has multiple at the same time. I'm just gonna let it do its thing. If it makes berries, it makes berries. If not, then whatever. But this means that I can start cutting off some of the older leaves that are kind of ugly so that it's just a little bit less clustered, because there's leaves like this and this that whenever a new leaf comes in, it has to grow through so many leaves, and it usually ends up damaging itself. So I just think it'll be nicer just to clean it up a little bit. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here are my yellowing seedlings. Okay, so this bin, this is Fortune and Ralph Lynam by Carla Dress F2. I want to repot a lot of these into maybe like 3-inch. I don't want to go too big on them because it can be a pain to ship, plants that are that big, but a lot of them are just getting way too big for these tiny little, like I think they're 2 or 2.5-inch pots, and they were getting a little bit nutrient deficient because I was A, drying them out, and B, not feeding them CalMag for a long time. But a few of them have been getting better, but they are getting way too crowded in here. So I do plan on uppotting some of them. But this one's probably the most interesting one I have left. It's very cabbagey and very texture, super long. So yeah, I do want to repot them and get them into a taller bin. And in doing that, I'm gonna cut off all the yellow leaves and just give them a fresh start. These are more seedlings that I have not fed. These are very nutrient deficient. Some of them fully dried out. These are more of the same hybrid, but these were fed a little bit more. These were fully neglected. These are the NSC, like the contaminated Carla selfed. They're getting a little bit big, but nutrient deficient again. They need some CalMag and some love. And then these are a mixture of Carla Wu 1 S2s. This one I think I'm gonna keep. I want to keep this one. I might keep this one. Some of them are kind of weird, like look at this one. What kind of venation is that? At least if I have like 1 or 2 keepers, that would be cool. And then the Carla BVEP by Carla Wu oneself. So the inverse of the Carla BVEPs, same parents. I only had, I think, 6 seedlings out of that batch. And I think I have 2 left. So I'm gonna grow these out a little bit more. This one I thought was cute because of the really thin veins. So these ones I also want to uppot, but in time when I have more substrate. And then in this bin is more large plants that I defoliated or they defoliated themselves, and I'm restarting in high humidity under grow lights. So there's like my Carib Queen, I have my Queen of Hearts, I have a Carla BVEP from Woohoo, and then this, may as well just take off the lid. These 2 are Woohoo's First Night. These are from the original Woohoo's First Night batch, which I don't even really recall the hybrid anymore. It's Pap something. Pap something. My mother plant was living on ambient shelves, and then the top growth point died. It activated 2 lower nodes. They grew these 2 little pups, and then this is the stump that I'm growing. So I have 3 props. I think I'm gonna sell them all once they kind of establish themselves and start growing again. And then these are the 2 props of my contaminated Carla. And that is my whole plant room at a glance. I hope you enjoyed this video. I've honestly been enjoying my plant room so much this week in particular, after those 40 some odd plants left my house. It might be hard to notice the before and after if you're not in here every day, so maybe I'm the only one who will notice the difference, but it feels so light and airy in here. And after doing all that repotting and seeing new root growth and some previous repots, new leaves coming in, super pristine, it's just very encouraging. I do have some more downsizing to do, but it doesn't feel nearly as dire as before. I'm very close to the ideal collection size for me. I think at the moment I have barely any plants downstairs anymore. It takes me 5 minutes to water my downstairs plants, and it just feels very manageable now, and I'm very content. But once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Mwah!